All right. Hello, everybody. Howdy, bot builders. Happy 3 p.m. Eastern time, a very different time for our stream than normal. But I hope that you are all enjoying yourselves, having a good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on what time it is where you are and where you're joining us from. It is a nice, peaceful afternoon here in Montreal. Uh, we're a little different today. I've got coffee instead of the usual water because it's 3 in the afternoon when I normally have my coffee. And you might be asking yourself, why are we streaming at a different time? If you didn't catch the memo, I'm here to catch you up. As people trickle in over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to take maybe just a minute or two of your time to explain to you what the stream is, how things are different from the way we've normally done live streams in the past, and what you can expect out of these two streams we're doing weekly now instead of one, which is very exciting. So the first and foremost is a lot of people, a lot of different people from around the world build on Botpress. There's lots of different people building lots of different kinds of bots. And one of the things that we notice is there are some of you that have really intense programming backgrounds, developer backgrounds, and some of you are like me and maybe are either new to development or new to programming, or are looking for maybe just like hey, I'm new to Botpress in general, and maybe I have some programming experience, but I'm in this in between stage. And so what we've done now is I'll be streaming on Tuesdays. I'll be taking over these kinds of like basics live streams or things that don't go too far into too much depth about Botpress and programming and development. And then Jesse, who has done live streams previously on Botpress, will be taking over the Thursday live stream slot, and that's going to be for programmers, developers, etc. So we've got two weekly live. Should developers just leave now? No, absolutely not. If you're getting value out of this, and that's great. Yeah, that's a good thing to flag. Everyone is more than welcome at all of them. It's just that kind of the content or the material that we're gonna come to each stream prepared with are maybe geared towards one group more than another. But again, like I'm never gonna turn any of you away. And if you're a developer in the audience, I'm happy to have you here. Also, another thing is we're looking to just meet more people in different time zones. So if this is earlier or later for you, and that's a better time slot for you, then that's great. That's kind of what we're looking for. So everyone is super welcome here. If you're watching this recording on YouTube, hi from the future or hello from the past. I hope you're having a great day. So that's the kind of what's going on here. I just a note on how I hope to run these streams. You're always all more than welcome to ask questions and report your bugs or questions you want to know or tasks you want to know how to be able to accomplish on Botpress. If I can answer them on stream, I will. If they're outside the scope of the current stream I have planned, you're also super welcome to just leave the comments below, and I will. I'll continue to use them to source those videos I make on YouTube or also the future live streams. So I read all of your comments and I pay attention to all of them. And that's where I source all of the syllabi from or the material from for these streams. So that's the who, the how, the what, the what's going on here. I hope that you're all enjoying Botpress. If you have questions, again, this is the place to ask them. If you're totally new to Botpress, hey, welcome. Happy to have you here. Hope that building is going well for you and is going to continue going well for you in the future. Okay, so perhaps now, without further ado, and if there are no other questions about streaming and whatnot, that's what I'll say. Okay, so we got some questions off the chat, so I'll start here. Can you explain how to embed a Framer website? This method is not working for me. Hey, that's a great question. I'm not going to show that here because I think that's a bit more development than I'm wanting to do on the stream. But I think if you want to post on help about problems you're running into, about making sure that if you're embedding a chatbot's not working, or if styling your chatbot isn't working, making ask questions in our stream, in our Discord, and we'll be able to help you out there. Shout out to Sly for saving my butt this weekend. Hey, glad we could glad someone could save your butt. That's great. Can we please go through basics like integrate with Zapier, how to click button on open chatbot? Yeah, that's a great question. Integrations are a really big, meaty topic that I know a lot of you have questions about. I'm going to manage a completely separate stream of like videos and live streams just for integrations. So I'm going to say stay tuned for that. There's way too much for me to cover in like a 150-minute live stream. So for integration specifically, I read all of your questions. I see all of your questions. I know exactly what you're asking. And so what I'm going to say is stay tuned for integrations. We're working on making sure that you're able to work with them really well, so on and so forth. So that's my bit on integrations. We hear you, we see you. We want to make them work as good as possible, and whatnot. If the audio is not working well for you, just make sure that the output is on whatever like headphones you have on at the moment. That might be an internal Discord setting on your end. Okay, I'm gonna jump now. I think we're at peak capacity, so I'm gonna jump right into the contents I have for today's stream, and we'll go from there. Bum, ba, da, bum. All right, welcome to the Botpress studio, everybody. Hopefully, this is a familiar site for some of you, all of you, most of you, and if it's not a familiar site, then hopefully it will be in the time to come. Perhaps, as I always say, eagle-eyed viewers might notice something a little different about the Botpress studio as of I believe this morning, and let me show you here. So maybe a bit of backstory before we dive into this feature. A lot of you have asked about, hey, how do you know that variable, or how do you know that code snippet, particularly if you're not a coder or a programmer, to get those tasks done. So things like checking if your bot was able to answer from a knowledge base or referencing the user's most recent message. That's a lot of things to remember. And I work here. Right, this is my job, and so this is what I think about all day, every day. But for those of you who are, you're using Botpress as a tool in your workflow, and you want to just get in, get out. A lot of you were asking, hey, I'm looking for something like a cheat sheet, or I'm looking for something like that I can quickly reference a ton of variables without having to remember all of them in my head, because we've all got a billion things going on. So we've heard that on our end of things. A big shout out to Patrick for actually building this. You all know Patrick because he's in the stream chat always. We've streamed together in the past, and also this is just for the Discord people, but Patrick is right here. He's a sticker in our Discord chat, and so Patrick and I put together this quick reference guide here. So it's accessible from the bottom left of the studio, just above the builder checklist. If you click quick reference, it's just going to open up a really simple window that stores some of what we consider to be the most used variables, right? We build bots all the time. And so these are the things that we have used most often. We're super open to, if there are things that you don't normally remember and you want us to add them here, pop that in the feature requests channel. We're super happy to continue adding to this. Obviously, none of this is ever final. So we're always looking at ways that we can improve this feature or make it more useful for you. So these are kinds of like the base that we thought would be the most useful for all of you. But as Patrick says, suggestions are always welcome. Please do continue reacting with the fire emoji to that sticker of Patrick. He certainly deserves it. So maybe I'll run all of you through a couple quick ones here. I've got a meaty lesson planned for today that I think will hopefully impress you, or at least impress myself. But here, I just want to show you some of the most core features or core, let's say, tasks you can accomplish with these snippets. Event.preview is probably the most important one, in my opinion, but if you're on the Botpress team and you're listening and you think something else is more important, feel free to fight me later. No, I'm kidding. Event.preview saves your user's most recent input. And so this is really powerful because sometimes you don't want to save everything as a variable, but you want to be able to access the most recent thing that your user has sent. And so event.preview just shows you that. So let's say that you're looking to capture an order and they don't input information in the format you expected, but you still want to be able to do something with the information that they sent you without saving it to a variable, because that's going to cause clutter in your bot. Event.preview is for that. So you can just use this variable to reference that most recent message. The summary agent, I hope that a lot of you are familiar with this. If you're not, and you've asked questions about how can I make my bot remember the conversation like ChatGPT, or how can I give my bot memory so it remembers what it said to my user, that's a feature that we've added on top, or it's separate. So not every bot does this if you don't want it to. Sometimes you don't need this, but a lot of you have asked about this. And so that's what the summary agent is for. So you can think of this as like portable memory for your bot. So the summary agent takes your entire conversation and either spits out the whole conversation transcript, so every message sent between your user and your bot, or a nice little summary, a nice truncated or condensed summary of that conversation. And so what that does is if you feed this to, let's say, the AI task, your AI task will be able to remember or understand what your user has spoken to your bot about, and shape outputs based on that. So a really powerful tool that a lot of you have asked about, and I'm glad to see it here. Maybe the last thing I'll talk about now is just the knowledge agent. So this stores your answer. This stores the citations for that answer. We'll be using these in an example today as well. And this checks whether or not your bot was able to respond from a knowledge base. So did I have an answer to that question or not? And so that's the quick reference guide. There are a couple more. I've got videos using all of these. So if you want to do a deep dive on this, maybe grab yourself a snack and dive into the Botpress YouTube channel. A sick plug there for you. But that's a quick reference guide. I hope that you all find this feature useful. Again, as Patrick says, suggestions are more than welcome. So if there are things that you find yourself having to remember or write down, we're happy to add them here. But if you were in last week's live stream, I know a lot of you were excited about this feature. So I'm really happy to deliver it for all of you today. Okay, let me catch up on some of the questions in chat. That's a good question, Icehole. I'm going to very clearly articulate your name, Icehole, to make sure that everyone knows I'm not saying an expletive. If you are giving a variable to an AI task and the variable is undefined, it will apply null or it will apply dull, undefined to the record. That's a good question. I've run into this as well. I don't know that I have an answer for you. I think that that's by design, right? So if you're using a variable in an AI task, you can't skip it. It's gonna have to be there. So maybe just make sure that your variables are always filled, and otherwise design the conversation such that your user won't end up at an AI task where the variables are undefined. If that's an unsatisfying answer, I understand, but that's currently the way that it's designed. So, hey, how did you get the quick reference up? Hey, how did we get the quick reference guide up? Hi, nice to see you. We worked really hard and we did it. There we go. So there we go. I see more questions in chat. I want to know if AI has multiple variables. Yeah, we support multiple different types of variables, formats, and storage. Does that answer your question? Your bot can have a lot of variables, a lot of different variables in different formats. Honk, indeed. All right, I'm gonna jump ahead now to the main portion of today's lesson, let's say, or task that I want to show off to all of you. So let me jump right in, and then we can continue doing that. Oh, Che, I see your question just before I start. Can we export chat summary to Zapier? I'm not going to comment on the Zapier integration because that's outside of Botpress, but you can certainly export your chat summary. So just using that summary agent transcript, like I was showing you, that ultimately just spits out a piece of text. So anything you're able to do on Botpress involving a piece of text, or a string, as a programmer I think would say, then you can do something with that. I see Patrick is typing, so I'm going to hope that Patrick maybe has a more detailed answer for you. But in theory, that's possible, yes. Anything you can do with the chat summary exists there. Okay. All right. Let me dive right into the lesson I have planned for you today. If you are a mainstay on the Botpress YouTube channel, you've seen me do this already, but I'm going to be adding a little bonus to the end of it, so it's not going to be quite the same. So what I'm going to show you how to do today is take questions that your users have asked that your bot wasn't able to answer from your knowledge base, and then save them in a document. I've seen a lot of you ask about this. Does Botpress support this natively? Is there a way I can do this with Google Sheets? These are all really great questions. And I think that, of course, it makes sense to ask this question because you want to continuously improve your knowledge base and you want to know what your users are asking your bot. So I've seen a lot of you use Google Sheets for this. I've seen a lot of you use Zapier for this. If that's working for you and you'd like to continue doing that, then hey, more power to you. But I know that a lot of us, particularly the people for whom this live stream is geared towards, may be hesitant to do something like call an external API or integrate a third-party service. And so what I want to do now is show you how to save those unanswered questions in Botpress directly without having to integrate with something like Zapier or Google Sheets. So again, if you're kind of a mainstay on Botpress, you've seen this feature already, or you've seen us kind of talk about it here and there. And I'm really excited to show you kind of the first one of the first tasks that Tables, a really exciting feature, allows you to accomplish in a really simple way. So let's get started here. And I'll dive right in. And I'm going to take this step by step, and I think I'm going to do this one step at a time, so that you can follow along if you're watching the recording of this later, or you can follow along at home, or at the office, or wherever you are now. Perhaps some of you are at an airport. Who can say? So step one here is in order to get an unanswered question, we have to prompt some questions, and we need to answer those questions from something. So I'll start by uploading a knowledge base, as usual. I'm going to upload a PDF document that I know really well, so I'll be sure to get some unanswerable questions there. So I'll be using the same one as always. Here we go. And that'll be uploading there. So some of you might be asking, like, why would I do this? What is the purpose of saving these unanswered questions? They can be great for a business if you're looking to improve your business. I think one of the things that is really important when you're running any kind of business is user research, right? And that doesn't just apply to software, that applies to a ton of different businesses. And one of the things I love about this is that it streamlines your ability to perform a really easy kind of user research without having to, go out and schedule interviews and whatnot. So my knowledge base is uploaded. It's the same one I've been uploading in weeks and weeks of tutorials. So that's there. And as usual, this should be old hat by now. I'm going to prompt a question with a raw input card. At this juncture, I want to say, if you're in the audience and you're maybe new to Botpress or you have no idea what's going on, feel free to ask any questions. Quite literally, there are no silly questions here. I certainly mean that. So if I say things and you're like, hey, I don't know what that term is, please go ahead and ask them. You've already asked them. You haven't asked a single silly question, but you're welcome to ask them again. So I'll prompt my user. I'll say, what is your question, as always? And I'll be sure at this juncture to save the question to a variable called user question. So right now, simple knowledge base answering. I'll make sure that knowledge answering is enabled on this node. Prompt user for question. Very good. Okay, next up, I want to check whether or not my bot was able to understand the question and then answer it. To do this, to check this, I'm really excited because I get to use that new feature I just showed all of you. I'll drag my expression card into my node, and using the quick reference guide, I'll take this variable and I'll check if my bot was able to answer from a knowledge base. And I didn't have to type it myself. How exciting is that? That's certainly exciting for me. So as usual, I'll just make sure that the variable notation is down and that it's false by using an exclamation mark. Let me just take a sip of water, as always. I see a question in chat. Can we feed knowledge base via API or automate knowledge base feeding to bot from outside Botpress? Currently, no, but we are looking at ways to improve all of the knowledge base functionalities. So if this is something you'd like to see, obviously pop it in feature requests. But equally, we're aware of the specific ask, and so we're always looking at ways that we can improve the way that you are all interacting with your knowledge bases, whether that's through an API or making them dynamic or whatnot. So great question. You are right on the money there. Okay. How come dot responded also works as well as dot answer? Dot responded should be checking whether or not the answer was there, and then dot answer just stores the actual answer itself. Okay. So here we go. If you couldn't answer. So what we've done here is we say, here's your question. If you can't answer that, go down this node. And I'll just change the variable, the label here. And I'll send a simple send message card saying, let's be fun today. Oh, bummer. I can't answer that. And there we go. So now here we've taken our question. We can't answer it. So we've told our user that we can't answer it in a send message card, and that's what happened here. All right, so now we need a place to store this question. So the problem that I think the thing that a lot of you were asking about was, at this stage, my user has now asked a question that I can't answer based on the information in my knowledge base. I want to store that answer so that I can refer back to it later and be able to update my knowledge base or update the communication assets for my business to answer those questions more clearly. And previously, some of you were using Google Sheets for this. I am going to do it all within Botpress by creating a table. So if you haven't used the table feature before in Botpress, here it is. I'm going to name it something descriptive like unanswered questions. And here's your database. Here's your brand new table. That's amazing. How exciting. All I'm going to do with this table is create a column called question. And so what we're doing here is we're creating this column. We're going to save the question here, and that's it. I don't want to do anything else. A really simple task today. The type of this column is string because I'm expecting my user to input their question as text. So I'm just going to leave it at that right now. And what we're expecting to happen, I think you can already see this taking shape, is that the unanswered questions will appear here. But you're probably wondering, how do I do that? How do I make sure that my workflow is talking to my table? I'll show you. It's a great question. So let's pop back to our main workflow. I see a nice comment in chat. Save you some Zap money. Yeah, of course. That's what we're here to do. All right. So the question I just asked, I have my table, but how do I make sure that my main workflow talks to my table or interact with each other? Well, that's through a card, of course. So in the node that our user arrives at when they couldn't receive an answer from a knowledge base, we'll just place the insert record card. And what this does is this tells our bot, hey, create an entry on that table when this happens. So I've placed the insert record card, and now let's start setting it up. So the first thing that you have to do is select the actual table. So in this case, unanswered questions. And then what appears here is the column that we just created. So question, what do I want the question to be? In this case, and if you're a bot pro, if you've been around Botpress before, you know what this ampersand symbol means. But this field supports variables. It supports dynamic expression. So if you cast your mind back to the beginning of this task, we saved our user's question in a variable called user question. So if we pop it here, what should happen is our user asks a question. The question gets saved to this variable. If we couldn't answer that question, it gets stored here, and then it gets inserted as a record in this table. So that's what's happening, is we're just doing a really simple two-node process of insert the record if you couldn't answer it, easy peasy, and whatnot. Okay, let me pause. I see some good questions in chat. Can a table be exported to Excel or Google Sheets? Not at the moment, but again, you are certainly not the first person to have asked this, so it's on the pipeline. These are all really good questions as well. I think in general, maybe a question I have for those of you looking to export this to Google Sheets is, what is the reason for exporting? And is that a feature we can build into Botpress? Like, is there something you're looking to do and whatnot? So that's maybe the follow-up question I have for all of you. And maybe we can take that offline, or we can DM about this. But the question would be like, yeah, to manipulate the data analytics. Yeah, those are all really good points, of course. Okay, so let's, we are going to test this out, but I've got a couple of, so this is ultimately what I showed in the video that I just uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you're curious about completing these tasks, you can go ahead and check that out. But as I promised at the beginning of this week's stream, I did want to show you something a little more exciting, or a little more advanced, or I know this is the basics, this is the beginner's office hours, this is for basics, but I really think this is like a key, or what I'm going to show you is a really great way to level up those skills that you have. So we've not answered this question. We've stored the unanswered question for ourselves, me, the bot owner, so I can see and improve my knowledge base. But I still want to wrap this up in a satisfying way for my user. I still want my user to have some value out of the conversation that some value out of the conversation they're having with my bot. So how can we maybe set up a fallback to improve that experience? Let me show you. Really simply, we'll just choose a single choice card, and I'll pop it in here at the bottom of this node. And what I'll say is just, do you want me to search the web for you? So in this case, do you want me to search the web for you? And then my user can just choose yes or no. So I'll add a choice. I'll say yes or no. And so now what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, I couldn't answer your question, but I can search the internet for you if you want. And so I'll save you the Google trip, right? I'll save you the trip to Google. So there we go. Can we do this? Yeah, of course we can. So let me show you how. Okay, so there are a couple of different layers to the task I'm about to do. So stay with me. Have some confidence. We go bravely on into this new world. What I'm going to start by doing is creating a knowledge base. So in order to search the web, we do need to create a web search knowledge base. So let me just pop this in here, and I'll name it web search. So this knowledge base is specifically for searching the web. So what happens next? Well, I could, in theory, pop something down here, but I like my workflows to remain organized. And if you're new to Botpress, maybe one of the most important tips I can give you is that it's a really great idea to keep your workflows organized all the time. So keep those workflows as clean as possible so that you're not looking at a really intense mess of nodes and paths. So it's tough, and I'm very guilty of not always doing this myself, but it's a good habit to get in the habit of doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a separate workflow for web search, and I'll just call it web search. So you can already see what's kind of happening here. If my user doesn't get answered a question here, I'm going to send them to this workflow. I'm going to say, we'll pop you down here, we'll do a web search, and then you can deal with something else later. And of course, we're talking about organization, so I want to show off all of the different ways you can keep your projects organized on Botpress. So I'm going to add a folder, and I'll name the folder web search. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the workflow in this folder and the knowledge base in this folder. And already I can breathe again because here we go. Everything is clean and organized here. I'll take a break at this juncture so you can all take a look at how I've organized this and answer some questions in chat. Can you show us how to set up two nodes, one for KB answers, one GPT node to handle the question if KB doesn't have the answer? GPT should be connected to the web search knowledge base. Okay, so big time treat. If I'm understanding your question correctly, I believe I already have something set up about this on our YouTube channel. If you look at the video I uploaded called ChatGPT fallback, I believe that should answer your question. Otherwise, I've done something similar on last week's live stream or the week before. If that doesn't answer your question, then please ask us on our Discord channel. We're always hanging out here. I thought the goal was kaleidoscope. If your bot looks like a kaleidoscope, hey, that's a work of art too. Yeah, JB's got you with the link to that video there. Botpress bootcamp. Yeah, I mean, bootcamp would be fun. I have to say that I think I'm less military bootcamp leader and more like camp counselor. I think I have big camp counselor energy. So that's the energy I would bring here. Okay, back to our work. So what we want to do is we want to send our user down to this workflow in order to search the web for them. So what I'm going to do now is at this single choice card, my user says yes. If my user says, I want you to search the web for me, I'm going to draw a path and execute a workflow. Execute a workflow just means send my user to that workflow. And so now that we've created it, it shows up as an option here, and I'll select web search. And so you can already see what's happening here. User question, we couldn't answer it. We log the question that we couldn't answer. And then if you want us to search the web for you, we'll do it down here. Now, in order to take our user's question, which remember, we've stored in a variable called user question, we've got to do a bit of Botpress magic. And let me show you how. So in the web search workflow, you can see here, I don't have any variables. That's because variables are specific to each workflow in order to keep your life organized. There, of course, is a way to pass them between, and I'll show you how to do that now. So I'm going to create the exact same variable called user question. And if I click on my entry node, you'll see I get an option to toggle variables. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, take this variable, but pull it, the content of this variable, the value of this variable, pull it from somewhere else. I don't want the user to set it here. I want it to happen somewhere else. So that now becomes an input variable. And where do we pull that value from, you say? Great question. Let me show you how. So over here, when we're moving the user across different nodes or different workflows, the input variable user question, and I'll just set it equal to user question here. So in essence, what we've done is we've prevented you from having to prompt your user for multiple questions. So again, the goal here is to make your conversations feel as natural or as clean or as organized or as conversational as possible. So in order to do that, we want to minimize the amount of times you have to ask the user for the same information. Okay, so now we have execute workflow happening here. We're going to the web search workflow. We go over here, and now the variable user question is equal to the question they asked earlier, the one that we couldn't answer, remember? Okay, so now that's happening here. What do we do next? How do we make sure that we get an answer to this question? Maybe yes, maybe no. Let me show you. So remember, the knowledge base for this folder is equal to the web search. So we're just searching the web. So I'm going to query the knowledge base. And remember, I showed you this card last week. I uploaded a video about it. It's a very powerful card called Query Knowledge Base. Will this live stream be on YouTube? Yeah, it is. These get recorded, and then we post them to YouTube, usually about a couple of days after or the day after. So the Query Knowledge Base card is a really powerful card that allows you to use the LLMs or the models behind the scenes that we use to query or ask questions of your knowledge base with a custom query. So you can prompt it in a more, let's say, sophisticated way. If you're used to interacting with ChatGPT, you can ask it to do a lot of things. That's what this card is for. It can kind of allow you to expand the types of things you're able to ask and the way that you can manipulate those answers. But for now, for today, all we're going to do is a really simple query. And all that we're going to query it with is workflow.userQuestion. And so remember, we're pulling this information, we're pulling this question from the earlier question our user asked. So it's just going to query the knowledge base for that question. Then we just want to send them the answer. So oh, wait, let me use quick reference for this. So if you're saying, hey, I want to query the knowledge base, but I don't remember the variable for getting the answer from a knowledge base query, let me find it here, copy, paste. Super simple. I love this feature. Wait, I'm actually so happy about this feature. I just need a minute to be excited about this because it's going to save my fingers so much typing. In any case, so now what's happening here is we've searched the web for a question, and then we've sent the user our answer here. And let's see if this works. So let's take a sec and see what happens here. And if I've done everything correctly, then it should work. And if I haven't, then we'll debug together. But if I say hi, and I get prompted for a question, and I'll ask it something I know that it can't answer. So I'll say, who is Oprah? Oh, bummer, I can't answer that, of course. Do you want me to search the web for you? Yeah, I do. I do want you to search the web for me. So we've entered our workflow web search, and we found our answer in our knowledge base, the web. We've got our answer here. Okay, so the whole purpose of this tutorial, the whole reason we're going through all of this is because we want to store that unanswered question here. So in theory, what should happen is we get the question up here. So every time a user interacts with your bot, wherever it's deployed, whether it's on a website or on the shareable widget, the unanswered question is going to end up in this database. So you're going to have lists and lists of unanswered questions that you can go through and reference based on that information for you. Say, who is Oprah? What is a burrito? So on and so forth. So this is a really powerful way that I know a lot of you were using Google Sheets or Zapier to do this, but I hope that by showing you this, maybe you can do this without having to leave Botpress, and hopefully it'll make your life easier. I know that I personally want to minimize the amount of third-party tools I'm using at all times. So hopefully if this can kind of streamline your workflow, that would be great. As I said, however, I did want to give you all a little bonus, or I wanted to make you, I wanted to level you up a bit more than if you had just watched the video, because this was, of course, the task that I showed how to do in my video. So let me show you. So, for example, when you answer this question, what if I want to store the answer? What if I want to know, I couldn't answer this question, but I want to store the answer somewhere, and I want to know what answer my users are getting from the web? Well, it's as simple as adding another insert record, right? So what we can do is take the here, insert record card, and pop our answer. So unanswered questions, before we can do that, of course, we need to add here a new column. Zapier is expensive. Zapier is really great, right? But of course, if we can save you a few bucks, wouldn't that be nice? So let me see here. And of course, we didn't provide our answer yet, so that's going to show as null. But here, workflow is user question, and the answer, remember, it's the same as before. It's turn.knowledgeagent.answer. And so now what we've done is we've told our bot, hey, store this information in this format. So let's try this again. So if I say, hi, who is Jane Fonda? I do want you to search the internet for me. We should see that information stored here. So we get the question duplicated because we have the insert record card here. You can remove that or keep it as you please. But now you can also see which information what information your users are receiving. So maybe you don't want to, you don't do the research yourself. Well, you can see it here. And so using tables, I really want to just emphasize to all of you, there are different ways that you can achieve different functions without having to use a third-party service. That's kind of the goal here. I'll take a sip and catch up on chat. When creating a variable, is it possible to add a selection for variable type, like user, workflow, global, instead of needing to go to multiple places to declare and take multiple steps to pass variables? RTG, this is a great question. At Botpress internally, we've wondered about the best way to manage variables across different workflows. In theory, it would be nice to manage them that way, but what we found is that for more complex workflows, passing them between workflows this way is the best way to manage these. So I think we're always looking at a trade-off between supporting the simpler bots or the ones that involve less workflows, but also being able to support the ones that have like a dozen workflows and hundreds of nodes. And so we're always we're striving for that balance. Sometimes we don't always get it right. So what I'm going to say is continue giving us this feedback. If there are things that are not working, or you think that maybe there's too many clicks to identify a variable type, please continue sharing us that information and whatnot. Will you show us how to export these questions and answers to Google Sheets? That's not currently possible. Technically, you could using a hacky workaround with execute code, but this execute code is outside the scope of our call, so I won't be showing you how to do that today. But also, the goal here is to show you how to do stuff within Botpress. So it would kind of defeat the purpose, right? If I was showing you how to do stuff outside of Botpress. But it's a good question. All right. So that's using tables to store unanswered questions. I hope that you find this useful. I know this is a really I've seen this question like dozens and dozens of times, and tables have been live for a while, so I'm really glad to be able to show you something that I hope you'll find useful. Okay. Maybe I think I'll show you something a little simpler and more fun. We've got about 20 minutes left in today's stream. So what I'm going to do is let me remove all of this. Goodbye, bot. I'll miss you. And I'll show you something that maybe not enough of you know, or I get questions about this, and it means that I haven't done a good enough job of explaining this. So let me see. Code Greeks, yeah, everything, all of our YouTube lives or all of our Discord live streams get uploaded to YouTube, so you can binge that playlist that's already there, and this episode will be up in like a day or two. Okay, so capture cards. We love them. We use them all the time, but we have questions about them. Do you have questions? I have questions. Let me show you. So let's say I'm asking my user, what is your order? And I'm asking them to choose between soup and stew. So typically, what you would expect is, what is your order here in the emulator? And then we look at soup and we look at stew, and we expect our user to click one. But our users don't always click things, and they certainly don't always behave in the way that we want them to. So what happens if our user types in a response? Well, let me show you. Let's say I store this the value of their order into a variable called order. And I want to make sure that I'm getting the correct order. Let me just use a send message card to make sure that I'm understanding what's happening here. And I'll say, so you want at order. Hey Remo, if your sound is not working, I'm going to say that it's probably a Discord problem. So if you go into your Discord settings and make sure that the output is set to like your current headphones, although if you can't hear me, if you can't hear me, then there's no way you can receive this answer. But it's adjust sound in your Discord settings. There you go. Glad we got that working. All right, so the long and the short of what I'm about to show you is that your capture cards actually are always listening to your user as well. So let's say, for example, I say hi, I get asked for my order, and I say, I would like stew, please, which is not clicking a button. My bot is still able to recognize this as our person wanting stew. So I received a comment. I don't remember if it was on YouTube or on Discord the other day, but somebody asked, at what layers of Botpress does AI exist? And so, what layers of Botpress is AI enabled? Is it only when our user, like you, the bot builder, uses the AI task? Is it only there for intents? And the answer is it's literally everywhere. So for example, here we're using natural language understanding to say that, okay, I would like stew, please, means that the food that they're looking to order is stew. And so of course here we've gotten stew for them once again. So I just wanted to notify all of you that your single choice cards in this example, as I'm using here, will be able to support text inputs. And so your user doesn't have to click a button in order to make a selection. They can also just talk normally. And again, I mentioned earlier in the stream today that our goal is to make conversations feel more natural. And this is how we're doing it, right? Is we're giving you the ability to support multiple different forms of input to arrive at the same destination. So if you want stew and you're like me and you want to say, I would like stew, please, instead of just clicking a button, that works as well. I say please to my Siri. I say, can you set an alarm for 7:30 a.m., please? Does anybody else do that? If you're in chat and you say please to Siri, can you let me know? Or is that just a me thing? Maybe it's a Canada thing. I don't know. All right. So I see Patrick's got some information about all of our cards. Yeah, so I think it's a good question about like a cards cheat sheet. I think the question is, how much information do we put in the studio? How often do we want you guys to go to the documentation? Again, everything is a delicate balance in life. But if we find that enough of you are asking questions about cards, like a lot of you are asking questions about these predefined variables, then we'll continue adding these kinds of cheat sheet or quick reference materials to the inside of the studio itself. Our goal is to enable you to build good bots. Play with life, yeah. You can't seem to find streams like this. I would say go to the Botpress YouTube channel, and they're certainly there. We have a couple of playlists of these recordings. Perhaps somebody can link you to one of those playlists in chat as I go through our next task. We've got about 15 minutes left. I do want to leave like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes at the end of stream for all of you to ask questions. That's usually how I run the end of these streams. So if you've got burning questions, save them for a couple more minutes. I think the last thing I want to show you today, if we've got time, is the AI task. It's alarming to some. It is definitely a beast of its own category. So let me show you how best to use it, and maybe like one of the things that you may not have known about the AI task that should make you feel like you have superpowers, or ideally at least make you a bit more productive. And really, what's the difference between those two things? So if I pop in an AI task here, maybe just a brief introduction would be necessary. If you're not familiar with the AI task, what this is our way of closing the gap between you and AI models in general. So in this case, GPT. So the idea here is you want AI to do something. It's maybe not a feature built into Botpress, or you want to leverage AI on top of answers you're already producing or things of that nature. That's what the AI task is for. And I'll get a lot of questions about instructions versus input, so I'll run through the definition of these two as well. The instructions is what you would tell an employee. This is an analogy I've used previously. So maybe I'll say something like, you are a storyteller. Use the input to craft a funny and exciting story about the subject that is 10 sentences long. And then in the AI task input, what I want to show you is this supports variables. So the real meat of the task I'm about to show you is that this field, again, anywhere you see this ampersand or this at symbol, supports variables. So you can think of this as kind of like a Mad Libs, or any information you're receiving from a user, you can then use in the AI task. What do I mean by that? Let me show you. So let me say, I'll ask my user, they've started a conversation, and I'll say, like, what is your name? Because I want to write a story about them. And I'll save that variable to, that information to a variable called username. And then I'll say something really simple like, what are you interested in? So again, this is just a really simple example of what we can do here. And so I'll save that to a variable called interest. So now we've sourced two pieces of information from our user. We've sourced their name, and we've sourced something they're interested in. And how do I make the AI task do this? Because it's going to be different every time, right? And so when you're prompting GPT like, tell me a fun story about a woman named Sally who likes coffee. And that's all fun and games, but we want to make this dynamic. So we want to make you able to use this AI task for all of your users without having to adjust any settings. So that's what the AI task input is for. So I'll say something like name. Let's say name is equal to at workflow.username, and subject is equal to at workflow.interest. So what we're doing is we're taking those variables and we're saying, write me a story about someone named this, and the subject of the story is workflow.interest, is equal to what their interest is. I'll save the result in something called story, which is the output, and we'll just make sure to send that to our user, and let's see if this works. So I'll say at workflow.story. Before I go ahead and do this, I just want a quick disclaimer. Like GPT, prompting is going to be it's a very much trial and error thing. So if you're not receiving what you want from your prompts, usually it's just a question of handling those prompts a bit better. And what that means varies from things to things. That varies from what you're trying to accomplish, so on and so forth. But anyways, let's get back to our fun here. So if I say hi, I'll say my name is Bob, and that's my variable username, and I'm interested in skunks. I love skunks. They're so cute. The AI task is running, going on behind the scenes, and here, what's happening is we get our story, and it's about Bob, and it's about skunks, and something I want to highlight here is maybe a sentence down at the end. However, as Bob, reached for his camera, the skunk let out a mighty spray, leaving Bob with a pungent reminder of his skunk-filled adventure. And so the reason I'm highlighting that sentence in particular is because this isn't just a Mad Libs of like, you could have filled in any words here and it would have made sense. The thing I want to show you is this is specifically about skunks, right? A skunk leaving a pungent odor behind by spraying its enemy. And so the point here is, this is not just bots of the past in the pre-AI days wouldn't have been able to write a story specifically about skunks or answer questions about this. But instead, what we're able to do is we're able to dynamically input that information, prompt GPT or whatever model in the future, wink, wink, that you want to use to generate this answer, and then spit it back out. And so this is, again, we're making those conversations feel more unique or more interesting or more alive than they would have been previously. Okay, so let me pop through some of these questions in chat. When we ask the user to save to variable, and if they answer with sentence, my name is Che, how do we save Che as an answer and not the whole sentence? Oh, that's a great question, Che. I'm going to say, I'll see you on Discord for this one after, because I'm going to have to test it out myself, and I don't have enough time left on stream. But that's a really good question, so let me see if I can double check that. Goose, if you put the following message into GPT, it'll become a prompt creator for you. Oh, yeah. See, this is amazing. So we're going round in circles. So you can use GPT to prompt GPT, and then you prompt it yourself, and so on and so forth. I also, maybe just a plug here, is we're working on a series behind the scenes of better prompting with Botpress, because maybe some of the prompts on Botpress are specific to Botpress as well. So certainly if that's something you're interested in, or something you're having trouble with, or you want to learn more about or upskill yourself in prompt engineering, as they call it, I'm going to say stay tuned for that one. Okay, we're just wrapping up, or we're nearing the end of today's live stream. So I want to say, do any of you have questions you want me to answer? Again, if I can't answer now, I'm going to save it in my question bank and use it to prompt myself to make future live stream syllabi or lesson plans or videos as well. So if you've got questions in chat, now is the time to pop them in. If you're lurking, you're also more than welcome to. I'll take a sip and give you all some time. And as I wait for, if any of you have questions to pop in, maybe I'll take this extra time and show you one last bonus task. So let me remove our skunk story here. And I'll reset my emulator. And as always, I'll begin with a raw input card. Here, I'll say, what is your preference? Oh yeah, Remo. That's a really great, beautiful summary of prompting. Okay. So what is your preference here? And I'll give two choices. I'll say soup or stew. Soup or stew is kind of my go-to. This is turning into a prompt off. Yeah, it is. But no competition here. We're all building together. Where is the Botpress dog today? This is the best question I've ever received on a live stream ever. Teddy is not in the office today, unfortunately. JP, where is Teddy? We don't know. If you want Teddy merch, let me know. If you're new to Botpress and you're wondering what the heck is going on, Teddy is a wonderful Samoyed who sometimes frequents the office, usually towards the end of the week. So on Thursdays live streams, you might see Teddy, but we also may, who knows, maybe Teddy will become a celebrity. Yes, that's a nice gif of a Samoyed, beautiful. That's making me miss Teddy. All right, I'm gonna say back to bot building for a bit. Elementary school teacher in me is I never taught elementary school, but I'm feeling it. So back to work. So what's happening here is, what is your preference, soup or stew? I'll say soup. And then what I want to be able to do is check if a variable is equal to a certain value. So a reason you might use this is, let's say at the end of the conversation, you are a business owner and you want to store whether or not your user was interested in a product. And maybe they said that at the beginning of the conversation. So at the very earliest point of the conversation, you ask your user, are you looking to buy? And they say yes, no, or maybe. And then at the very end of the conversation, you want to reference that again. How do you check the value of that variable and send your user down different paths based on the value of that variable? This might sound like a little scary or a little codey, but again, the whole point of Botpress is that we're making these kinds of tasks or tools more accessible to you. So let me show you. So in this card, what we're doing is we're taking a question, we're storing the answer or the value in a variable called order. So the variable order is either going to be equal to soup or stew. We don't know which one, but I want to be able to check. And I want to be able to move my user down a certain path based on the value of that variable. So as always, we're going to take an expression card. And I want to, this is again, this goes back to my earlier point. AI is baked into most layers of Botpress, and it's kind of, the idea here is it's one of the only platforms where you can put all those prompting skills that you guys developed in your prompt off to good use. So in natural language, I'll just say, check if the variable order is equal to soup. So in this case, workflow.order equals soup. And this is typically something in the past or on other platforms that you would have to type. You would just have to know how to write this. But what we're doing here is we're saying, just tell me in natural language, and Botpress will do this for you. And so let's do this again, but I'll do it with stew instead. So check if the variable order is equal to stew. And we see we get the same thing. So the point here is, I don't want you to have to write code if you don't want to, and if you want to write code, you can. And so this is the thing about product design is like, we want all of you to be able to use Botpress regardless of your level of coding proficiency. And I think one of the things with chatbot builders in general is that they're really geared, or a lot of their features they have this like split down the middle between you should either be in one camp or the other, and a lot of things are abstracted away from you. And of course, we're a software company, so we've got tons of software engineers and non-software engineers using Botpress daily. And I think the point here is, the idea is you have all of the above at your fingertips whenever you need it, right? And so if you want to code, great. If you don't want to code, great. Goose, you are not the mayor of Noobville, because I believe that's me. So you'll have to fight me for my unelected position. But I think that's me. Nah, I'm just kidding. All right, let me just make sure that this is working. So I'll say here, this one is the soup node, and so this next one would be the stew node. Also, I want to say, if you've watched my YouTube videos on the Botpress YouTube channel, or you've hung out for this stream, a really important thing that I want everyone to get in the habit of doing is test your bot at every step. So all of the so for example, like I'm creating a really simple task here, but I'm checking to make sure that it works. This is like I believe, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but I believe this is programming a best practice, is to check in increments, right? Is to don't write your entire program and then check at the very end or test at the very end, because you won't know what went wrong. But if you test or check that your bot is working in increments, you'll be able to debug yourself better. We're always happy to help you on the Botpress Discord, but the idea is like you have those skills in your hands anyways. So it's a really healthy habit to get into. Let's try it out. So what's my preference? Soup. We've checked if the variable is equal to soup, so I get sent to this node. You could, of course, achieve the same thing using this node here. But the point is, what happens if you're checking what this variable is equal to way down the workflow, like all the way at the very end? You could have a ton going on in the beginning, in the middle of your bot, between asking or setting this variable in the very end, and you'll still be able to achieve this. And so this might do things like, do you want to set up a calendar appointment? Do I think that this is a qualified lead or not? If you're in the business world, you can determine at the beginning of the conversation whether or not this is a qualified lead, and change the way that you maybe wrap up a conversation with this person. What I want to get across here is like, you're both learning programming at the same time, but then also you're using like a pro tool. So this feels, in my opinion, it feels really cool to use, because I don't feel like I'm kind of just clicking a black box and not really sure what's happening. It's teaching me, or I get to look at kind of how the sausage is made, as it were. I had some sausage on my pizza for lunch, and I'm thinking about it ever since. But in any case, the point here is you get to see how the sausage is made, and then maybe like own the butcher shop yourself, if that analogy holds up. So we're just running to the end of today's stream. Maybe just a quick recap. We covered, for example, how to save unanswered questions using tables. I think that's really the big one. You can use variables in the AI task. Very exciting stuff. I hope that a lot of you use those variables in there. And then also how to check the value of a variable. We need a new series, programming for Botpress. I think that we do. And then I think a couple of things maybe that I'll just plug here at the very end of today's stream. We've got a new playlist on YouTube, Botpress tutorials for developers specifically, so made by devs for devs. So the idea is we're branching out to all of the different things. Please can we get version control? Sir Lucian, that's a great question. I love this question. If you haven't already, please pop that in feature requests. Or look in that channel and see if anyone else has asked for this and upvote that request. We really do take the feature request channel seriously on our Discord. That's where we store a lot of our. We source a lot of our product roadmap for example. So if things are, popping off there, you know that we're paying attention. Um, Tables are awesome. Thanks for the demo. Hey, yeah, no problem. RTG, thanks for stopping by. I'm really happy to see all of you. We are now reaching 4 o'clock, so it is time for me to have a cookie. Usually I have lunch after these streams, but today I'm having a cookie. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope that you had a great day. Look out for this recording on YouTube if that's of interest to you. Check out our other videos. Otherwise, happy bot building, everybody. Bye-bye.